stop motion has been around almost as long as filmmaking itself, well over 100 years ago. And of course, technology has really grown and with this particular technique. And so it's a combination of digital work and handmade work. I would say that one of the most important things about animation in general, certainly stop motion, is a message or storytelling. This is really what we do as a species. We tell stories to each other. We relate to each other through stories, through our experiences. And animation has the ability to sometimes push points that might be a little bit more controversial in a one-to-one real dialogue. So in animation, you can hint towards things, you can get messages across in very interesting and compelling ways. And I find that a really important aspect in animation and that kind of storytelling. Not only messages, but also what do people think? How do they react to certain situations? And that is an important part of storytelling, is performance and animation, timing. Acting is very important. I think there was a time where everybody wondered if stop motion would go away because of 3D computer graphics. And 3D computer graphics have that dimensional look, which really ultimately mimics stop motion, because stop motion was figurative, round things in dimension. So CG mimicked that. But at one point, 3D computer work became so effective that many of us wondered if stop motion would go away. But it has not. And quite honestly, it's actually, over the many years that I've been working in this technique, which has been well over 40 years, I've seen it kind of go up and down a bit, but it's always there. There's always an interest in the handmade quality. And there are, like many techniques, different schools of thought. Certainly, there's the very high-tech, high-craft approach to stop motion, which is probably well demonstrated in the work of Leica, which is a studio in Portland, Oregon. And you've probably seen much of their work, like Kubo and the Two Strings, Box Trolls, and actually Coraline was produced there, which I worked on over 10 years ago. And they've incorporated some new technologies like 3D printing and have refined the 3D printing, actually won Oscars or Academy Awards for their technical prowess in that area. They do beautiful computer composite work. So they really have upped the ante in terms of the craft. But there's also a school of thought that really highlights the handmade quality of stop motion. And I see this more in some of the independent films that are around, not just in the United States, but around the globe. Aardman Animation, where I worked for a couple of years in Bristol, England, still maintains a certain amount of that handmade quality, which gives it a charm. And I think when audiences look at something that's handmade and they see the imperfection of that there's an appeal that people empathize with, and they think, oh, this is an inanimate object that's been moved to come to life. And of course, this comes back to the acting and the performance. So not just moving something, but moving characters or puppets, objects in ways that really create personality, understanding of emotion and efforts. And so for me, this is part of the reason I love stop motion, is because it's kind of limitless in its possibilities. It reflects the world around us because we use the camera. And again, understanding how the camera works, what lenses do, what depth of field does, how we can shoot in dark areas, lighter areas, contrast. That's all part of the technique that help enhance, again, a message that you might want to get across. Some of the things that I would advise young filmmakers who want to get into stop motion to think about, to actually incorporate in their studies, is this idea of acting, of certainly fabrication, photographic work, lighting. These are all different aspects of the technique that are going to really help a lot with storytelling. So if you have a story that's very upbeat and happy and sort of relating a very positive message, you would probably want your lighting to be bright, full, contrasty. You'd want your characters to be empathetic in a very upbeat way, so that it all sort of feeds into this story. And of course, that's only one of all sorts of examples of how these techniques that you need to learn can help your storytelling.